What's good, everybody? It's your boy Sunny, and I'm back again with another episode of Sunny Talks. And on today's episode, I'm here with a very special guest. I'm here with Jordan, the inventor of Satori IO. How's it going?
That's going good. How are you?
How's it going, Jordan? How's everything, man?
It's going great.
Okay, all
Yeah, I'm
right.
happy to be here.
Nice. I'm glad that you stopped by and you made some time for today. So on this show, we like to take people through basically through the whole story of your life. So basically from the earliest memories and we work our way up into present day. But before we get into that, can you let the people know who you are, what you do, and where they can find you?
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah.
Hmm.
My name is Jordan Miller. I'm the founder of Satori. You can find Satori at satorinet.io. That's the website. It's got a Twitter at satorinet.io. That's probably the best place for
Okay.
that kind of stuff. So by the way, it's a distributed AI, decentralized AI. And so that means it's a crypto AI project. So we're distributing AI bots across the world. They're predicting the future, and that's what Satori is.
Okay, so I didn't understand that. So that is a predictive AI, but it's predicting what exactly? Trends of the crypto market, or is it predicting anything?
It's predicting anything, really. So you can
Hmm.
run it on your computer. You can put any kind of data you want into it. You can point it at any data stream. Basically, if it's a price, government statistic, climate metric, whatever you care about,
Yeah.
you can kind of do it. So um, it can predict anything. And the more it predicts, though, as it scales, the more it predicts, the more it finds correlations between different things.
Hmm.
And those predictors start to help each other make better predictions over time.
Okay, so it's just it increasingly gets smarter and smarter with all the information it collects.
That's right.
Okay. All right. So are you on social media or anything, or are you just focused on your main website right now?
Yeah, I guess I have some social media accounts. I don't really use them much, right?
Okay,
So
yeah.
when I post, it's about Satori. I'm just trying to show people what I've been building for the last 2 or 3 years.
Okay, definitely. We'll definitely get into more of that later on. So before we get so let's start off with everything. So where were you born and raised?
Okay, I was born in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Mm-hmm.
So as a Mormon, I was born
Okay,
into a
okay,
very Mormon clan, and
okay.
that shaped a lot of my younger life and teens and all the way up into my 20s because I did go on a proselytizing mission. And finally, at about 22, 23, after I came home, is when my life really started because that's when I escaped. That's when I
Okay,
got out of the Mormon religion.
okay. So you said is you were in a pro you went on a proselyte.
Proselytizing mission, yeah.
Okay, and is that just a mission where you go to spread the word of the Mormon church?
Yeah, spread the word.
Okay, okay. And I had somebody else that was part of the Mormon church, but we didn't really dive too deep into it. Can you well, I guess let's just go through the whole thing. So, growing up
Sure.
in Salt Lake City, how
Yeah.
when did you notice that you were different from other people?
Oh, gosh. I kind of felt different when I was really young, and I have a lot of memories from around 3 and 4 and 5 years old.
Hmm.
Um, my world kind of changed a little bit, and so I formed a lot of memories at that age. Like we moved, like I was actually born in North Carolina, and then we moved back to Utah, where my parents were raised.
Okay.
So, yeah, I can remember like early on, like learning about Jesus, like for the
Mm.
first time, like when I was like 4, like asking my mom, like, what this, we go to church, like what are they talking about? Like, what is Jesus, And she was um, she's like, I'll tell you, Jesus. was the perfect man. He was the most perfect man who ever lived. He was perfect. And I was like, wow, wow. Now, while I'm 4 years old, now that I know it's a competition, I think I could probably, place somewhere.
Mhm.
So I was really into the church from a very young age. I was very into doing what's right, being kind of that Mormon identity, I guess. So yeah, it was pretty much my whole identity.
Okay, so can you explain to the listeners s- somewhat like a generic overview of what Mormonism is?
Oh, sure, sure. So, well, you've got the Catholics and so the original Christians, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got all the Protestants that broke off of them in the Middle Ages and afterwards. And then you've got these New Age religions that occurred um, over in there was like a revival over in the New World in 1800s and all that kind of stuff. So that's when the Mormons started. So they took ideas from a lot of different Protestant religions and kind of had their own take on everything, mixed in with this story that they came up with, the Book of Mormon, this story that says after Jesus died and was resurrected over in the old world, he came over to the new world and talked to the people here. And so yeah, and so that's what the Book of Mormon is really about. It's about the people that
Mm,
lived here, and that's that kind of story.
that being the Native Americans.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Interesting because I always like I kind of like knew that I vaguely knew that it had something to do with the Americas and the Book of Mormon, the actual tablet was found by George, not George Smith, what's his
Joseph.
name? Joseph Smith, yes.
Yeah.
And okay, so I never knew that the story was like connected to the Native Americans because I don't ever see Native Americans associated with Mormonism, or are they?
Right. Right. No, no, I
They're
don't
not
think
at
so.
all.
Yeah, not really. In fact, I
Okay.
think that book um made the Mormons feel like they were better than the Native Americans because they moved out here to Utah and there were Native Americans around. And I think that made them feel like they were superior. They would call them the Lamanites because in the book they were called the Lamanites.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I don't think it made them friends.
It's
But yeah,
weird. It's a
yeah, it
confusing
is weird.
story. And and also the Joseph Smith was what, 12 years old when he wrote this book, or is it younger than that?
So no, he claims to be around 12, 14 when he kind of saw visions of God.
Hmm.
And then later on in his late 20s and 30s is when kind of the book came out um and then, he made his cult and they all banded together and yeah. And a lot of that history stuff, it's pretty fascinating. It's pretty fun. I think it's good. I was always more interested in the theology,
Hmm.
the deep doctrine. Like, what did they take? I didn't see it this way at the time, but what did they take from the Protestants? Which sects did they take it from? And Catholics, like, how does it relate to the original kind of classical theism I was always interested in? So, when I finally did leave the church, I kind of fell in love with kind of metaphysics in general because it kind of allowed me to break out of the theology story that I had been given and that I accepted as a Mormon and kind of see a broader view that I had never allowed myself to see before in that kind of philosophy, in that
Hmm.
realm. So it was, yeah. So I find that kind of stuff very interesting.
Oh no, yeah, it's definitely interesting. I know that you may not be a direct ex. Well, who knows? You might be an expert in there or not. But as far as black people in Mormonism, it's kind of like contradictory, like um stories that I've seen. So one before I used to see that they said that the black people were just like they carried the mark of Canaan, that's why they were
Mark Cain.
black. Yes.
Yeah.
And but then recently I saw something, I'm not sure if I was confusing it with Amish or Mormonism, but it said that so basically it was like a story of like kind of like Scientology, but not Scientology. So it's like the space war or something like that, and the white people chose the side of good, or they chose to fight good. I mean, fight bad. I'm sorry, and the black people didn't choose a side, and that's why they were cursed. Something like that. So,
Oh,
do you know about any of those?
I don't know if I've heard that, but I have heard the Mark Cain stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I'll say this, the thing about the Mormons, this is their claim. This is their big claim to fame. This is what they're all about. They
Mm-hmm.
say, look, Jesus came down, made a church. That was his church.
Mm-hmm.
He gave those people the priesthood, right? Now, these are the people that are allowed to run his church. Okay, great. And that's like a government authority. Like that's like God's kingdom on the earth. Okay. So then they say Jesus came back. He came back to Joseph Smith and gave him the priesthood. So that's their whole spiel, is that Mormons are the ones with the priesthood of God. They're the ones with the authority to run his church on the earth. That's their idea.
Okay. So sorry that I cut you off,
Sure.
but as far as the first church that he started, what evidence of that is there, if any, in the New World?
Well, they say, oh, in the New World, yeah. They say that that church was lost.
Okay,
Like
obviously.
as, over time, all the apostles died. They didn't pass the priesthood on to anybody else, and then it was gone, right?
Hmm.
No more church. And then they think the Catholic just kind of picked up the pieces and kind of ran with it. But that's their story there. And then the same kind of thing happened in the New World. They think it just got lost because
Okay.
nobody passed it on. And so, well, my point with that is their
Hmm.
their concept of the priesthood and their authority from God, they they said, okay, well, we have I don't know, racism built into our structure. So
Hmm.
they didn't let black people have the priesthood. You couldn't get ordained in the Mormon church
But you can be a follower.
until, yeah, you could get baptized, but you couldn't have any kind of authority at all.
Okay.
Um, until like 1974 or something,
Hmm.
like pretty recent. So eventually they came around and I don't think they're racist anymore, but it took a long time.
Okay,
So
interesting. All right, so take me. So growing up in Salt Lake,
Salt Lake.
so you were you living in a Mormon community, or were you just Mormon and integrated into regular society?
Yeah, so the numbers are a little bit different nowadays. I think the Mormon church doesn't have nearly as much activity as they claim. But, back in the day, most of the neighbors were Mormon, or maybe half and half. And it was kind of that way. So if you
Hmm.
were Mormon, you knew most of your neighbors and you'd go to church and you wouldn't know the ones that were not. And that's basically what it came down to. It wasn't like a,
A
stone
giant network.
cold, yeah, cult, like a fundamentalist down south or something like that. But it was definitely pervasive through the entire Salt Lake culture. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so something that I asked the last guy about, I'm into conspiracies and all that. I watch a whole lot of conspiracy shows, and there was one episode I saw. I'm All the names are like escaping me, but it was about the Mormon church, and there was a break off offshoot of Mormonism, and apparent well, what the claim was that they practice like demonic stuff
Oh,
and
wow.
stuff like that.
Hmm.
You ever heard any of that?
No, there's a lot of offshoots that are like, hey, we don't want to give up polygamy. And so, there's those, but I haven't heard of the demonic stuff. No. I mean,
Okay.
it wouldn't surprise me.
Okay, I'll try to look it up. I'll see. I should have had it ready, but I did. I knew you mentioned you were into like religion and stuff. I didn't know it was specifically Mormonism.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you eventually left it, but we'll get there. So growing up, you say like it wasn't like a tight knit community, but like you knew your people that you went to church with. Is it called church?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know the people like in your parish, I would assume, and all
They
that, and you
call
knew
them wards out here, like psych
wards.
wards.
Oh wow, that's an
Yeah.
interesting title. Okay, so going to high well can you tell me some of your like education like growing up in school like how were you just like super into books and stuff or were you into like other activities and all that?
So I was super into truth. I'm kind of a scientist type, like in my personality, just like a scientist type. So I always kind of knew that you could know the truth, you could do experiments, you could get there. And I watched like Bill Nye like every day in elementary school. I was like into it. And that's, I think, one of the reasons that I was so attached to the Mormon church is because they claimed you could have a direct conduit to ultimate truth. We've got this direct conduit to God and modern day revelation and all that. So I was like, okay, great. Yeah. Now I'll take that. That's the easy path. I'll take it. And I wanted to believe in it. And so you know, it kind of stifled my curiosity beyond, to figure out what real people knew. I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of always pointing back to the church and being like, well, what's the doctrine? Like what
Mm-hmm.
do we know?
You were
And
pigeonholed into the word.
I was pigeonholed, right? Yeah. And so finally, I mean, I was kind of interested in stuff, but I can't say that I really felt like I was educated or getting educated. I mean, I went to school and whatever, but until I left the church. So then I started to really go crazy on education because I took it very personally. It was my personal journey. It wasn't, just something you do.
Okay, and
So,
sorry to put you off, but
oh, no problem.
can you explain a little bit more about the so you would read stuff about like history and stuff, I'm assuming, and like literature and maybe some type of religion, but you will always refer back to the book like, okay, they saying that the Big Bang Theory, you're like, okay, what does the book say about this?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, just like
Okay,
that. And I
okay.
was like an apologist. I was like a 14-year-old apologist. I would like write essays of like how to combine this theology with what science knows, and I was just doing all kinds of mental gymnastics to try to make this work.
Okay.
It was very difficult for me.
So you were somewhat in a conflict at an early age, a
Oh
religious
yeah.
conflict.
Oh yeah.
Okay. But you were still stuck on the word and everything. Okay.
Yeah, and it was about 23, maybe 22,
Hmm.
when I came home from the mission and was not happy. I kind of felt like I had done my part. I had been faithful and religious and dedicated. And when I came home and I didn't feel like like God was holding up his end of the deal. Like I wasn't happy. I wasn't getting anything I wanted. That's when I kind of stepped back, and
Hmm.
I wasn't ready to like throw religion away, but I did have to step back and just say, let's do a little experiment. If I was really, if I really knew everything I needed to know, I would be a happy person. So I thought, I'm just going to be really curious about everything, and I'm going to learn whatever it is that I don't know. And so I started with economics because that was around the housing crisis. And I started to learn about economics and Austrian economics, Chicago, Keynesian, and I kind of delved into it. And after I got into that, I was like very curious about government control because the government is the biggest player in the economic structure that we have. So that got me into like philosophy and logic and moral philosophy. And it was probably about when I hit moral philosophy that I had to bring religion back onto the table and say, I have now figured out how to think for
Hmm.
myself. with rational thought. I got it. And I was able to come up with a set of morals that conflict with the morals given on high, that my church teaches. And that's when I had to drop it because I was like, oh, well, I'm not wrong on this one. So either God is wrong or it's just a made up story. And I have to face that. So that was kind of a lot of my education. I but I explored everything. When I started going to college, I was really interested in, I found that I was interested in just how information works in general. Like, I took classes on DNA and uh, how DNA works through generations and all that, and and the brain I found fascinating. And I found that economics was an informational structure, like the pricing mechanism. It transfers information throughout the economy.
Mhm.
And so I really found that I was really interested in information and how it works. I eventually became um, a developer in a business intelligence team,
Mhm.
building models, um, learning about data science kind of stuff. So, yeah, I've always been interested in information, and that got me interested in intelligence as such.
Mhm.
I was really interested not just in how we kind of try to instantiate intelligence in machines, but how does our brain instantiate intelligence? Like, what is intelligence at its core? So, yeah, I found all those things fascinating.
Okay, so to me, to me, you saying all of those things, and the word is slipping, but the one factor that is in everything, it is that to me that I'm seeing is like you're into systems, like operation systems, like how
Yeah,
does government operate, how does the economic operate, all these type of different operating systems that could also be related to religion, because that is also like like
totally.
operating system. Yeah, okay. All right, so I see that. So it kind of seems to me like you were just trying to figure out how the world works.
The whole thing. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And so can you expound to me on like where did you go on your mission and what actually happened took place?
Okay, so I mean, there's a movie, The Best 2 Years, right? This is the cultural narrative of the Mormons that your mission is your best 2 years. It's like amazing.
Hmm.
Well, mine had a bumpy start. So I was one of the first missionaries to be called when they implemented some new computer system or something in the church. And so I got my call and it was in Spanish. So I was like, well, am I going somewhere Spanish speaking or,
Well,
what
like
is
you literally got a letter that was in Spanish.
Yeah, you get a letter and it tells you this is where you're going to go, report to the MTC, whatever. So, but it was in Spanish. I was like, do they think I speak Spanish? Because I don't. And so that was should have been a red flag for me.
Hmm.
Like if God is guiding this, decision.
They would have known better.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and I was like, okay, just ignore that one. I went to Iowa, the Midwest,
Hmm.
and I really did enjoy the people, and um, just the people out there are fun. But I think the people everywhere are probably pretty fun, and good to know, and interesting. That's what people tend to say when they come home from the missions, that their favorite part was the people.
Hmm.
The actual mission itself was terrible. It was just not fun for me.
Hmm. How so?
Well, my whole life, I had been, looking forward to this where I would be out there and teaching. I mean, you can go on other types of missions where you're out there serving, you're doing service projects for 2 years or something like that. That's
Mhm. Like
cool.
charity and whatnot.
Charity, I mean, looking back, if I had been, I don't know, if I had known what I know now and still been religious, I would have done something like that instead.
So was
But
your mission more convert oriented?
convert oriented, yeah.
Okay.
and I didn't make any converts.
At all.
No, none. And I look back on that, it's a blessing in disguise. I'm glad because I
Okay.
look back, I'm like, I don't want to convert people to this. But during the time, I was just frustrated the whole time. It was just not fun. And I mean, I don't blame anybody because I'm like you put them in you put these missionaries in these small towns where they've knocked on every door for the last, you know, 20 years. Everybody who's going to join has joined, So I'm like, it was not for me. No. And I'm not a salesman. I don't know how to persuade people to do things or believe things. So that was, yeah, it was no good.
Hmm. And and was it just not well, obviously, yeah, not convert anyone. Was that the main reason like you felt like you had failed?
Yeah, that's the main reason. I was kind of just feeling miserable. And eventually, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna smell the roses and enjoy whatever I'm doing out here because I don't know what I'm doing, apparently. But I guess I'll just stay the whole 2 years and just try to take it one day at a time and enjoy it. But I mean, there's a lot of rules. I mean, you're working from sun up to sundown, knocking on doors, trying to get people to listen to you. It was just like the worst from for a personality like mine. It was just not
Okay.
good.
And I'm assuming you had like you ran into reoccurring characters, let's say. Like were there some people like in the neighborhood that it was just you found yourself being friends with?
Well, I did find that there were basically I don't know, two or three, four categories that people would fall into, how they would react.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd either just like be like, go away, right? I don't want to deal with it. Or they would um maybe be like, okay, I know who you guys are, and let's chat, let's just talk, let's just be friends. I'm not gonna convert, but I got nothing to do. I'm a cheerful person or whatever, and let's hang out. And so that was my favorite, honestly. And
Mm-hmm.
then there were the people that were already in the church who would um I don't know, were kind of the same way. You'd kind of gravitate towards them and hang out. And then there were, I guess, people in the church that were kind of even standoffish because they were like, yeah, you do your thing and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Were they like when you went to this new town on your mission, was the local ward, were they hospitable? Like did they take you in? Did you get housed?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, they would take you and they would feed you a lot because usually the at least on this particular mission, the church would pay for a standing kind of apartment that the
Mm-hmm.
missionaries would come in and out of. Like they would stay there while they were in that town. And so you'd usually have your own place. I lived with members in one of the areas. You move like every 3 months. So um but they were very hospitable and they'd have dinner for you. They'd be like, "Hey, missionaries, come over to our house for dinner this, Saturday or whatever." So, yeah, it was a lot of fun seeing the missionary or seeing the members and hanging out with people.
Mm-hmm.
I did like that.
Yeah, that's what's up. That's dope. Like just community stuff.
Yeah, the community. And when I left the church, I did notice I didn't have a community anymore. I didn't really feel like I was a part of the community before I left as well, but I mean, I really noticed that
You only felt it on when you were on mission.
right, yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Interesting. So what were some of the day-to-day shenanigans? Well,
Shenanigans?
yeah, like what were you getting into when you were out there? Like take me through your day while on mission. Like you wake up in the morning, you pray, I'm assuming, and then you went out on your day. Wh-
Yeah,
Were you hit
a
up the
day in the
impoverished
life.
areas?
So you work 6 days a week, and then you
Okay.
have one day off to do,
Mhm.
laundry or whatever. So 6 days are usually filled up. You wake up at like 6, maybe 7, I don't know. It was early.
Mhm.
And you have some kind of morning routine. Maybe it's a workout, maybe it's, eat breakfast, all this kind of stuff. And then you start to read the scriptures until about 10 a.m. And then you head out for the day. Um, Usually that means you're knocking on doors or going to like a mall and trying to pass out like pamphlets or something for, a few hours until like maybe 1. Then you get some lunch and then you do the same thing again until dinner. Maybe you go eat dinner with a member and hang out. If you weren't able to do anything, you'll probably have an opportunity at some point to teach a lesson, even if it's like to a member. Like
Mhm.
let us share a message with you or something like that.
Mhm.
And then at about you're supposed to be home by like 8 or 9, and then you go to bed, and that's the day. And so you do that 6 days a week, and they have lots of rules, but they all the rules kind of try to keep you in line to that routine.
Mhm.
So yeah.
That repetition of go out, preach the word. Okay. And as far as the word, are you reading from like a Mormon Bible or is this like a King James version? Or was it
Yeah,
something else?
King James version of the Bible, but the
Mhm.
Mormons also have a few other books, the
Okay.
major one being the Book of Mormon. So that's
Okay.
their scripture pack that they go out and yeah.
Okay. And when you were saying that you would read the scriptures in the morning, like did you get a lesson plan like weekly or did you just read the Bible like straight through?
You kind of just gosh, I don't know. I don't think they had much. They didn't tell us what to study ourselves very
Mhm.
much, but they did have this kind of manual that they gave everybody called Preach My Gospel.
Mhm.
And this is taking me back. So they gave you this manual, and those are the lessons. There was like 5 of them or something like that, that you would teach to anybody who was curious, right? You take them through the first lesson, the second lesson. And so they did want you to kind of study that and read all the scriptures that were associated with that lesson and kind of really know that manual inside and out.
Mhm.
But
Okay.
yeah, you could just read whatever you wanted.
Okay. But there was a game plan like, hey, this is how you convert people. You read to them from this.
It's very, very cookie cutter kind of thing, which is not something I was interested in either.
So you weren't allowed to stray away from the talking points at all.
Not really. Maybe, I mean, you could talk to people in addition to maybe those talking points and talk about other things, but usually people didn't have stamina for that. They were like, okay, I had my lesson, or that's good. So yeah, I didn't get much time to talk about kind of the areas of the church that I was actually passionate about, which was really like the academic part of the theology and the metaphysics behind the ideas, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, it's interesting.
Yeah, like
And
the first lesson was like a history lesson of like Joseph Smith. And the
mm,
second, I don't even remember. We rarely got to the second lesson.
because you
Uh,
had to stick around for it.
yeah, but eventually it would, they were progressive until the last lesson was something like baptism. And then
Mm.
it would be like, okay, are you ready to get baptized? So yeah, it was very cookie cutter.
It was like straight to the point. Did it seem manipulative in a way? Because you just the way you explained that is like, I'm giving you a brief overview, and then I'm going to teach you about baptism. At the end of that, hey, all right, are you ready to be baptized?
Yeah, it did feel like that to me. Um, it's so funny. The church leaders or whatever would always preach like, well, you gotta not do that, I guess. Like, I don't know what they were trying to say, but then they would push you into this structure where that's what you have to do. And it's just because it's a bureaucracy. Like that's what
Hmm.
you're going to get in every bureaucracy. You're going to get that kind of pattern. So they
Hmm.
want the human touch, but they don't know how to enshrine it into their material.
No, yeah, definitely. And it's something about these like you not being able to put your personal touch in it and pull on different examples to teach people is like it makes it kind of robotic in a way. It's just blah, I'm spitting this to you, and it's like I'm a robot. I can't even really give you like my personal accounts or like you get it like
Yes.
mhm. There's no
Yeah.
emotion to it.
The I would if you talk to return missionaries, people that have just come back home from their mission, and you ask them to tell you something or, whatever, you will hear a voice. It's the missionary voice. Like they all combine or they all kind of coalesce into this very annoying, kind of soft, like this is the way I can't even, like it's just annoying. But it's so much of a robotic thing that it even infiltrates the way they use their voice to explain, the concepts.
So
It's
there's a certain
wild.
cadence, right?
A cadence, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
it's an annoying one.
They now that you say that, I had like the way you were like when you were explaining all of this, I'll just try to picture all my interactions with like the Mormon uh not minister what's it called? Missionary or whatnot. And then it is kind of all the same type of interaction. Like
Mhm.
I can't say that one interaction was different from another because I usually just shut them down from the beginning. Not
Right.
like that, but once I do that, it's over. Like
Yeah.
you mhm.
And some
'Cause-
people, there was always like at least one person per area that was just friends with the missionaries. And they were just chill. They're not going to convert, but you can go over and see them. You know, they'll love to talk to you and chill. So, that was always fun.
okay.
But yeah, most people, it's not a good thing. Like, it's not good.
Okay. Well, so when when it was time for you to go on your mission, was there like any like ceremony or anything like did you
Oh
go
that's true. So there is kind of a ceremony people go through. So everybody knows you're going on mission. So, people talk to you and like, oh, are you excited? You got 3 months, they give you a little piece of advice or something. And then the last thing is you probably give a speech at your church, at the ward, on Sunday. Soon before you go, family members come over to your house. That's kind of the general pattern,
Mhm.
to send you off, a farewell, and then maybe people take you to the airport and there's a farewell or something like that. But yeah, you usually give like a farewell speech.
Okay, but
Like,
there's no form of like graduation or anything like
no, no, just
okay.
just kind of that.
Okay. So just a basic going away party.
Yeah,
Okay. Interesting. That's dope. A couple more things on the Mormon topic.
yeah.
Was there what would you say was like the dropout rate after mission?
Ah, that was interesting. The mission is more about converting the elder, the kid that's going, than it is anything else. That's the
Oh,
deep secret.
the missionary himself.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so
Now
it's
I
a
was
test of
already
devotion.
right, devotion. So I was already converted, right? I
Okay.
had been converted explicitly like since 8 years old. I was like dedicated.
Hmm.
And so I was a kind of a rare case where most missionaries are just like, well, my parents want me to go, and it's probably not a bad thing, so I'll just go. That's like 50% of missionaries. And then some are excited, some hate it, some don't want to go. Um, but I was on the far end of the spectrum where I was so excited to go. Well, I have found that those that didn't want to go they 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 come home and they're not Mormon anymore, right? Like they drop out. They're
Hmm.
like, okay. Those that were like on the fence, they read the books, they learn the manual, they get more into it. They're like, oh, this is interesting. And they indoctrinate themselves. And after 2 years, they're in it for life, right? And so it's much more about converting the the young man than it is actually getting other people to join the church.
Was it so real quick, was it because it's saying all this and it just drove me to like the idea, like, was it that you seeing the reaction of other people, was that what was detrimental to your belief in Mormonism?
No, no, not at all. Because I came home, I still believed it.
Okay.
I was still
Okay.
going to church. It was literally um, deciding, my experiment at like 23 was I said, okay, obviously there's something I don't know, and I don't know what it is. Like maybe if I had been totally honest with myself, I would have known what it was, but I
Mhm.
wasn't there yet. So I had to say, I don't know what it is. I'm going to figure out what it is. And so that means I have to look at the world through eyes that have no preconceived notions. I'm not going to judge anything. I'm not going to take it back to the religion and okay it, right? So I have to do this on my own. So it was making the explicit decision that I'm going to take my belief system and put it on the back burner. I've got it memorized. I can come back to it at any time, but it's going to be sitting back there for a while I form a new belief system. And then we'll see if this new one is no good. I'll just go back and get the other one and I'll live the rest of my life, this way. But if I can do better the second time around, we'll have to just see what happens. That was my experiment. I wanted to look at the world as if I was a fully formed infant brain, I could think, but I didn't have any preconceived notions whatsoever. And it didn't take long. It was definitely less than 2 years. It was probably 1 year. And I had to confront Mormonism and I had to drop it.
Mm.
So, and I confronted other things too. Mormons are very Republican and they're very conservative. And and I confronted that first. And I was like, well, no, I can't really, just accept this anymore. I think it's a little more nuanced than, what I've been taught. And so I think this process of deprogramming yourself from whatever culture you were brought up in is probably a process everybody should try to go through at least one time in their life. And I think a lot of people, maybe most people, kind of do, even whether it's explicit like I did, or whether it's kind of implicit, they just kind of learn new
Mhm.
things over time and change their opinions. I think people tend to do that a lot.
Yeah, that's definitely healthy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But when you're in a cult or a religion or any kind of, I would call it a mind virus, anything that's really got you, you have to live in those circles and it keeps you from exploring. Um, so yeah, breaking out of that deprogramming, I would say that's very important.
Okay. And something else also I wanted to ask, were there ever any like tests to your like faith, like that you going through life? Like, did you ever get into like situation where, like, let's say, so growing up in high school, did people invite you to go party and do some drugs or some shit?
No,
No?
no, because I was too isolated. The church had done really, really good job of isolating me. I was really sheltered. In fact, I kind of wanted those tests of faith.
Mm.
I wanted to see how I do, but I never
Mm.
got the opportunity. So, because I was just so isolated, all of my friends were in the church and I didn't have very many friends. So that was it. And so I never had that. Well, I had one friend that really wasn't in the church, but he wasn't into anything crazy. He was pretty normal. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, my last question as far as Mormonism goes, have you ever heard the theory that some three-letter agencies out there they tend to disguise themselves as Mormon offshore?
Oh, do they?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of stories, and it was funny to me because it reminded me of a story I heard. Well, my grandma told me a funny story, and some Mormons were involved, and I was like, wait, what the hell? That's kind of weird. Mm.
What's the story?
Well, it's kind of a long story. It's just it has to do with a property that we have in the Caribbean, and there was like a weird event that happened. There was like I don't want to call it paranormal, but it was like some weird thing that happened to the trees overnight, and there were like allegedly like lights and stuff.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, but then allegedly too, there was always a story that there was two American soldiers buried on the property or something. And then where the Mormons come in, it was just like they kept getting visited by Mormons randomly.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, it would be a great disguise. If those three-letter agencies wanted to, one needed a disguise, it's great. You can get in anywhere. Well, except like you'd probably be found out if you went into like a club or something, but you can get in anywhere as far as like any neighborhood, like they're all over.
Are there any
So,
countries that prohibit like Mormonism?
I'm sure there are. I'm my grandma and grandpa. When you get old, a lot of people here, they go on another mission when they get
Mm,
old. And so that's usually not proselytizing. It's like you go out and then you kind of do the management work of
the
these
area.
missionaries or something like that. So
Okay.
my grandparents went to Israel on a mission to
Okay.
Israel,
Interesting.
and you could be Mormon in Israel, but you weren't allowed to preach it.
Oh,
So you weren't allowed to like try to get converts and stuff like that.
so what was
And
the
I'm
point
sure
of the
there's
mission?
other countries that kind of do the same. I don't know if any completely outright ban it, but there's probably some.
I mean, that seems like a ban to me. You can't like that's your whole mission.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you leave the church, you get into school. So you didn't go to college while you were in the church.
Oh, a
You
little bit, a
a
little
little
bit.
bit.
I
Okay.
was in it, because I didn't go to college before the mission. Then when I came home, I started going to college
And you were still
and
part of
just
the
taking like
church.
general ed at the beginning. Um, um, and then getting into those weird courses that talked about systems and information. You know, if I had known who I was when I started going to college, I would have gone into something mathematical,
Hmm.
or I would have gone into AI directly, or I would have done whatever. But I was using college as a discovery mechanism for who I was, as well as trying to educate myself just by reading my own books, listening to people on the internet, just finding my own way as well.
Okay. So, all right. So, you spoke on AI just now. Can you explain to me your involvement in AI? Like, what are you doing with AI?
Sure. So, as a developer and in the
Hmm.
business intelligence group, learning how to make models and I found that I'm a much better developer.
What is a model? Sorry.
So a model is like a statistics, right? A statistical model that you can ask a question to and it will spit out an answer.
Okay.
So that can be, um, if you're in a business, you might have like a pricing model, like how much should we price our goods or services?
Okay.
If we price low, it'll attract this kind of business. If we price high, it'll attract this kind. So you have a pricing model that tells you that kind of stuff. So that's a good example of just a generic model that businesses might create.
Okay.
But
And then
then AI, oh, go ahead.
No, so that's what I was going to ask. So, in the terms of AI, would the models be the what is answering your prompts?
Yes.
Okay.
So then you get into AI. So I had a boss who was an actuary, right? And so actuaries build statistical models. Yeah, and these are, the old-fashioned way of building models. And then data science comes along and we get, I wouldn't say more sophisticated, but I would say more automatic. Now we can leverage the computer to do a lot of computation so we don't have to
And
manage ourselves.
and as far as building models, are you like creating files of information?
Yeah, the
Okay.
model is probably saved on disk as a file somewhere.
Okay.
And so, and then, like you said, the prompts and the large language models that are the latest evolution of AI, those things are huge. Those are huge models. And so I wasn't building stuff like that back back in the day. But what I noticed was that in business intelligence, you can couch most questions that you're going to ask in terms of the future. You can say, like, okay, well, if we change this, how is that going to affect this in the future?
Yeah.
And so the system that I built, Satori, is a future predicting system. So these prompts, these AI models that people have been building, large language, they are language models. They are not talking about time or the future. They don't exist in time. They're just one static structure. And you put in your question and it bounces around in the structure and then it spits out an answer. Well, I wanted to do something with time because I kind of felt like if you do something with time, you can then share the prediction that, that comes out the other side. You can share a prediction. And if you share the prediction, other people or other models that are trying to develop themselves to predict other things can use your prediction as input to its model. So prediction, unlike something like language or other things, other spatial dimensions, this temporal dimension prediction, you can instantiate it on a distributed network much more easily, or I should say much more efficiently than you can instantiate like a large language model. So that's why I built Satori, because I thought this is the perfect marriage between artificial intelligence and blockchain or distributed consensus in general. Um, so anyway, that's what I'm doing with Satori.
Okay. And how does basically the AI operating system and the blockchain go hand in hand? Like, how do they interact? Like, can you explain that to me?
So you go to the Satori website, for instance, and you
Mhm.
go and you download um, a little program. Now, this is not the model. This is a little engine that runs on your machine. And the engine, what it does is it goes to the blockchain and it says, what should I look at? And all the other nodes, all the other neurons in the network say, look at this, look at this price, look at this government statistic, look at this, climate metric, whatever it is. And your node it subscribes to those things and it just starts listening to them all the time. So 24/7. And so as it's listening to them, it starts to build a model of how they work. What kind of patterns occur in this data stream? What kind of patterns can I correlate with other data streams? And so it starts to build a model of how it works, and it's always trying to figure out a model. That's why it's an engine. It generates a new model all the time, a better model. So it gets better and better at predicting the future because it gets better and better at recognizing the patterns that exist in this data stream and the relationship of patterns that exist across other data streams. So it starts broadcasting its prediction out. and it says, okay, well, I've been listening to, say, the price of gold for the last 2 months or something. I'm broadcasting the price of gold now, my prediction of the price of gold out. So maybe it's gold on the daily chart or something, every day there's a new price. And so as soon as it gets that price for today, immediately it will run that through the best known model that it has created. And it will broadcast out the prediction of what it thinks the price of gold will be at this time tomorrow. And then anybody who wants to listen to that prediction or use it in any way, including the other predictors, can just pick that up and run with it, use that information to inform their models. So this is what I mean when I say, like, it's more efficient because we have BitTensor, for instance. BitTensor is a cool blockchain AI project, and it's got all this infrastructure for building distributed models. But the way in which it builds those models is very different than what Satori is doing, because it does not share the output of the model with everybody else. What it does is it shares weights with everybody else. And so it will fine tune some weights, and then it will distribute that, and share it out so that we can have a large single model on this network. Well, Satori is a federation of models. There's all these little models living in individual people's computers, and they're just communicating about the future and trying to make each other better. So, yeah, I guess the answer to your question is like this: sharing those weights is that's a good way to do it, but it's more efficient if you're only dealing with time to only share the output of the model, because that's the most condensed description of the future. It has the most information rich data, I suppose. So if you want to, blockchain and networks in general, the internet in general is a low bandwidth system. You can't send very much data. So what you have to do is send the most salient data. And when you're using AI to predict the future, you can do that. You can just send the output of the model. I don't know. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Not really, because I still don't even understand like what the model actually does. But like I'm kind of get an idea of it, but like um, I understand like it is intelligent and it's helping all these other systems better their algorithms and like their just
Yeah.
operating systems, and
And a
because it's
model
all mhm.
is just an algorithm. It's an
Okay.
algorithm that's been trained to be its particular shape, but it's just an algorithm. So um, yeah, and we're just trying to find the best algorithm that can predict every piece of data that our society generates or measures. And once we can do that, um, once we've scaled, essentially, is what that means, then we
Mhm.
can predict everything all at once. We can feed all those predictions into a large language model, and we can just type in a question. And the large language model says, well, I see this is getting predicted over here and that, and this and this and this. And so that means the answer to your question is this. This is what the future is going to be in whatever domain you're talking about. And so that's what the ultimate goal is. It's just getting to the point where we can just have a large language model that's always informed about what the future will be, so we can talk to it. And once we have that, that's what I call a future oracle. We'll have a future oracle that we all know this is the best prediction of the future that we can come up with. And when we know that, like, that's the whole point. Because when we know that, we know what everybody else knows. We know that everybody believes this is the best prediction of the future. This is what's going to happen. And as soon as we as humans all know that everybody's in sync, we're all in consensus, that's when we can take action immediately. So instead of arguing or bickering or having to wait to pass laws, um, we are like, oh, if we don't pass this law, we're going to end up in a bad outcome. Okay, we're going to pass this law. So I think it allows us to react to the future before it happens. I and that's the whole vision. That's the point of the whole thing.
Okay. With that last part, it kind of reminded me of a, forget the name of it, but it was like this theory that at some point humanity will all like sync up and then like become technically basically become machine.
Yeah.
And I think it's called singularity.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
All right. So is that related to this?
I think
Point?
so. I mean, because I've heard the singularity be described a few different ways. People say, well, it's the point at which the evolution of technology is moving so fast that we just don't even know what's on the other side, right? Just kind of like a black hole. We can't peer into it. We don't know what's there. That's why we call it the singularity. So I kind of have a, a theory of what that is, and it's exactly what you described. I think
Hmm.
that's kind of common, is that the idea that what we are doing with technology is making faster and faster communication. That's what we always wanted. You know, we had to, if you wanted to communicate with someone far away, you needed to use a horse and write a letter. And then we got telegrams, and then we got phones, and then we got radio, and then we got, TV. And so we're in this trend of trying to create higher and higher bandwidth between, everywhere. And that's what technology is doing. It's just making higher and higher bandwidth. And so when I relate that to like the brain, I think you've got
Increase your mental capacity.
what's that?
You're basically trying to increase your mental capacity.
Mental capacity. Yeah, we're already trying to export all of our stuff to our phones and use that
Mhm.
as our brain and stuff like that. But I see that we have two hemispheres, a left and a right. The only way that they can communicate is in the middle, this like corpus callosum superhighway of information.
Mhm.
So they have um, they have a communication that's going back and forth, like a conversation all the time. And I think that's what makes up most of what we experience. Um, and so as soon as we start to interface our brains with technology at the same rate that our two hemispheres can communicate, it seems like at that point, um, we cease to be separate conscious individuals and
Mhm.
become one conscious individual
Yeah.
because we're communicating at the same bandwidth that our hemispheres are communicating in our heads.
Mhm.
And so I do see that as the inevitable
Instantaneously,
end,
somewhat.
right? What's that?
No, saying instantaneously, somewhat.
Yeah, instantaneously. I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't think it's soon. 100 years, 1,000 years, I don't know. But I do think that is the end of the whole experiment.
Mm.
Like that's what
Interesting.
technology seems to be tending towards.
All right, so I got a couple more questions as far as the AI and the currency. So, as far as the information, like, did you ever like source information, or is it learning purely just from the other machines that are out there, the other AI systems that are out
As far as Satori goes,
there? Yeah.
um, I made every Satori neuron. That's what I call the thing you can download, the node. I
Hmm.
made every Satori neuron also be capable of being an oracle. So if you downloaded one and you're like, well, I have some data that I think the Satori network should predict, then you can, type it into your neuron to go out and get that data and relay it onto the Satori network. So that basically means we can have any data on the network as long as people are willing to do the relay and act as a relay, act as an oracle, then we can predict anything. We can see anything.
House, but when they sign up to be an oracle, like what are they contributing?
So if you sign up to be an oracle, and well, okay. So every day there's a certain amount of tokens that are minted,
Hmm.
and those
So
tokens get distributed to all the oracles and all the neurons.
so
So
this
if
is where the
you
money part comes in.
this is the crypto.
Okay.
So then if you download it and you're just let it run, hands off, you just download it, run, and you walk away. It acts as a miner. And the mining activity that it does is predicting the future. So it goes out and it finds something to predict and it just starts predicting it, trying to figure it out. In addition to that, like all the neurons do that by default.
Hmm.
And it's automatic. In addition to that, if you're like, well, I'm going to point my neuron to Yahoo Finance once a day or every 10 minutes or every hour or whatever you want, and it's going to go out to Yahoo Finance and it's going to grab some data. And then it's going to take it and relay it, not as a prediction, but literally as the raw data. It's going to be like, here's the price of gold. Here's the price of gold. Every 4 hours, here's the price of gold. And then some other neuron can pick that up and start predicting it. So if you do the manual work of setting that up, and it is mostly just filling out a form on the neuron. But if you do the manual work of setting that up, and then it'll do that from now on, every 4 hours, it'll do that forever. And you'll now be an oracle, and you will earn the oracle reward in addition to the prediction reward.
And
So
when you initially downloaded your neuron, you had to pay a fee for that, right?
no, a lot of systems are like that. So, but I wanted this to be completely free and open, have no barrier to entry. So it's downloadable for free.
So you download it and then you basically you create you tell the neuron what to do, and from there on you're just making money, and you're just contributing to the.
Yeah,
Oh wow, okay.
yeah. And that's how mining um typically works. Like, well, with blockchains, it's hashing, but it's the same pattern.
Okay.
Um, the only difference I would say, well, there's I guess several differences, but one of the main differences is when you're hashing, you're doing one algorithm and everybody has to do the same algorithm. And that means people can write GPU programs that will run that algorithm faster than a CPU. They can even enshrine it into hardware to run that circuit as fast as light can go. And so the people that get these ASICs have vastly more compute power or hashing power than you do with a generalized compute CPU or GPU.
Mhm.
So that means that they make all the money. It centralizes to them. Now with AI mining or intelligence mining, you're building models, and there are thousands of algorithms to build models. So we have to improve the engine. We're still in beta, but in theory, we can have the algorithm match the type of hardware that you're running. And so it can run the algorithms that are best for your hardware, whether it's just one little CPU on your laptop or whether it's a few GPUs in your garage, or maybe you've got lots of GPUs or something. In theory, you can match it to the hardware so that you can provide the highest amount of value to the network possible
Mm,
relative to everybody else.
okay.
Yeah.
So on average, let's say someone's coming into this. Well, before I get into that, what like with my limited knowledge of like currency and whatever. So basic like in relation to like Bitcoin, this is kind of like when you join this system, you basically become a mentor, not a miner.
A minor.
So you become a miner for free and join the system basically.
Yeah. That was the vision of Bitcoin. But
Okay.
because it's that one algorithm, it's centralized so quick that you can't do that. You can't
Okay.
mine on a laptop or even on, some GPUs. You got to be a miner. That's your job. You got to
Okay.
know what you're doing and have these huge computers and yeah.
So that's essentially what so Bitcoin in that sense, Bitcoin will be an ETF, right?
An ETF?
Sorry, an electronic traded fund.
Oh, right. I think Bitcoin operates mostly as a kind of as a base currency.
Okay.
So that's one of the things. This this won't pay you in Bitcoin, and won't pay you in Ethereum. It'll pay you in its own token, which
Okay.
is worthless, right? Because nobody knows about it. So, but as people mine it and as it gets, people start to hear about it, then it'll get some kind of valuation. And if it does a good job, it'll be higher. If it doesn't do a very good job, it'll be
Okay,
lower.
so I got a couple questions because I saw on the internet trying to do research. I saw a Satori like poker chip that had it. I saw some and like I saw that they're selling on eBay anywhere from like $200 to $600 or $1,000. Is that in relation to your thing?
No, I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Satori, the term is an Eastern term. It means enlightenment.
Yes. Okay.
And so I think there's a lot of companies that have used that um, name. I didn't
Okay.
see any crypto Satori when I first, started building this project. So that was one of the reasons I went with this.
Okay. Well, that one
Um,
was like a poker chip that had a Bitcoin, like or some sort of Bitcoin in it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what? So Satori is basically STR, right?
STR.
Or no? So like, are you guys on like the
Oh,
market?
oh, the ticker. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not on any exchanges yet.
Okay. Oh,
So, but what we're going to do is we're going to put it on some decentralized exchanges first, and maybe someday it'll get on, large centralized exchanges. But
okay.
we
Because
don't know what ticker we're going to use yet. Yeah, it's basically that early.
okay, because I see something like I'm trying to do research. I found something that said Satori and it was called STR, and it was basically at 0.0251 cents, and it says something about the market cap was $125,434. But this has nothing to do with you guys at all.
Yeah, that's some other project. Yeah.
Okay. And that's actually like so you guys wouldn't be a coin like this?
We would be a coin like that. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. So as far as like where the money comes from, like did you initially like put in a lump sum of money like backing it by like gold or something or anything like that?
No, so
Because I don't know how any of this like really works. You get it?
usually, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think people who are more persuasive, they might go to investors and get the investors to give them some money, find the developers, have the developers build whatever they want. So with my idea, I thought, well, I don't know how to get investors. I don't know how to get all that kind of stuff, but I do know how to program this. Like I know how to do this. So, and I don't know how to do like all of it extremely well, but I can make the first version of Satori all by myself. And so I thought, I'll just do that.
Okay.
I'll just do it on nights and weekends over a few years. I'll get it done. And and then people will see it. And once they see it for its, for what it is, then they'll be interested and they'll, maybe more development will come into it. I'll be able to take less control. That's the whole goal.
Okay, so I got a few questions that like were provided to me by people that actually knew a little bit more about like cryptocurrency and stuff like that. I just wanted
Cool.
to shoot a couple at you. So, how does your blockchain differ from your blockchain or ledger? Because you said this is a ledger or is it a blockchain?
Um, a good question. It's kind of a ledger. We'll call
Okay,
it that for now.
okay. So how does your ledger differ from others like Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Okay. All right. Good question. So I came to a crossroads. So since I've been doing this mostly by myself, I have had to do the most essential pattern that I could do because I had to make servers, I had to write apps, I had to get the algorithm, I had to build the engine, I had to do everything. So it's so much. So I was like, I need to do everything as simply as possible. So when it came to saying, okay, well, what kind of blockchain do I want to use? Do I want to use smart contracts or what do I want? I said, well, I want something that's very easy to set up. I want something that is um, financially interoperable to currencies like Ethereum or Bitcoin.
Okay.
And I need something that is something that's cheap to distribute. Doesn't cost a lot to send it out to people. Now I could make my own blockchain. I could make my own series of smart contracts, or I could make an asset that is already on a blockchain. So I could piggyback on another blockchain. And that's the choice I decided because it was by far the easiest to set up and by far the cheapest to distribute. And I could still get that goal of having it be tradable to
Mhm.
Bitcoin directly, that. So what we have done is there's a fork of Bitcoin called Ravencoin, and there's a fork of Ravencoin called Evermore. So these systems are a lot like Bitcoin with more features, basically.
Mhm.
And so they're not smart contract systems like Ethereum. That's like different, but they are a lot like Bitcoin. So I've been able to build the asset on Evermore and Ravencoin and have the wallet directly in the node or in the neuron so that people, all of that's behind the scenes. You don't really have to care what it's on or, what it's doing. You can trade it directly from the downloadable neuron that you have. So every neuron's an AI engine, a wallet, and also the Oracle that we talked about.
Mhm.
And with this wallet, I built in the ability to do voting. So we can still do a lot of the smart contract stuff without actually being smart contracts because everybody's got a wallet, they have their own cryptographic identity. And so we can track voting and we can say, one thing I did is I wanted the community to be in charge of the token. So this is a community token. It's community owned and driven, which means they're in charge of the minting manifest. The minting manifest determines how much a prediction is worth versus how much a Oracle distribution broadcast is worth. And that's the effect of the voting
Mhm.
that's right there in the wallet, in the neuron.
Okay.
So I had to do things as simply as possible. And I think I found a way to get everything that the neuron needs, including voting and having the community be in charge of the token, um, just by building on a platform like Evermore and Ravencoin.
Okay, so how does like the interface work? So the GPUs, that's basically like the computers, like, for lack of a better term, that people have in their houses that are like plugged in and they're running 24/7. And so how do you see all your stuff, and like how is it your stuff safe? Like what if your computers crash, or let's say there's a fire in your house and you lose everything? How do you access your stuff again? Is it in the cloud somewhere? Like,
It is on the Ravencoin and Evermore blockchains.
okay.
So it is out there. It's a token that's, public, everything's auditable, everything's viewable, and it's out there. So what I think I can do is I could actually show you the UI, if you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah, I believe you have sharing options. So if you like, you could just go ahead and share your screen or do whatever you want to like to do.
Okay. So it'll take a few minutes to come up. I gotta start it and start my Docker and all that. But yeah, it's definitely on a blockchain out there, um, so that you can get it anywhere you want. Now, what you want to do is make a backup.
Okay.
So that is one thing. Let's see if
And
this
when
is up.
and when you make a backup, what is that? Like, do you have to make a create another GPU somewhere else, or like?
So if you want to back up your Satori neuron, at this point, it should eventually just be like a button. But if you can save some folders onto like a hard drive, then you'll have a sufficient backup. That's basically what that would come down to. If you got a little flash drive, you could save a backup of your wallet and everything else. Um, and then you could use that to transfer your neuron over to a different computer or whatever you want to do.
Okay. So while we're waiting on the everything to fire up, let me just ask some more questions. How are you addressing regularity and compliance issues, particularly in different jurisdictions?
Good question. So I'm in the US, so I got lots of compliance to do. So let me just run this. There we go. So I did some research on a company called Gala Games. Have you heard of Gala Games?
No, but can you inform me?
So Gala Games, their parent company, I think they started it or got bought up by a parent company. But anyway, their parent company has pioneered this idea of um, community-owned tokens, community-owned tokens. Um, and that's a legal structure. So if you make a Bitcoin, I mean, it's totally technology structure. There's no legal interface. It's just, um, technology, right? It's determined by the code is how it works.
Mhm.
Well, this company said, we want to be able to produce a token and give it to a community and have them control it legally. And so they pioneered that kind of structure. So I did research on them and I'm following their pattern for how to comply with regulations. And the pattern basically comes down to you need the nodes, the neurons that are running, to watch each other, make sure everything's good, and sign messages that everybody's in line. And they need to be in control of something like the minting manifest, where they decide what mining actions deserve what reward. And so I baked that in from day one, like, during beta. Um, so yeah, that's basically it. And I'm also trying to make this as it's open source. It's a nonprofit. The Satori Foundation's a nonprofit organization. Um, and so I kind of feel like I'm doing everything as best I can legally, but if I'm just very open and transparent, I feel like That's as good as I can do as a single individual. I've done the research and everything's open and transparent. And also, I've not taken anybody's money. I've not taken investment. Um, so I couldn't do that if I didn't have the skills that I had. So that's been
Ev-
nice not to
Everything's
have to do
above
that.
board.
Yeah.
Okay,
See
interesting.
if this is up.
And something just came to mind. Are you afraid of basically when the government eventually creates the Fed coin and puts that into circulation, and there's more like government oversight on cryptocurrencies?
I'm afraid for the people because the government really wants to make that coin and disseminate it and everything to be back under its shell.
Mhm. And
Um,
this is an actual thing because at first, like anytime I hear about it, it's like in conspiracies or so, but this is an actual thing. The Fed
it's
coin is actually
actual, yeah, for
okay.
sure.
Okay.
What is it called? CBDC or something like that. It's the
Mm,
government tokens, and the government has a crypto, or sorry, a digital currency right now. The dollar's digital, and it would really like to make it a cryptocurrency so that it could have more control. And I just don't see that ever not happening. It's definitely going to happen, and that's why I'm like, pick up a little Bitcoin or pick up a little something that's not under their thumb. I think it's really a good idea to just have a little, just as a rainy day fund, because if it comes down to it, they have all the cards, they have all the control, and they want to keep all the control.
mhm,
So if you just have a little bit set aside, you know, I think that's real safe. I think that's a very good idea to do that.
mhm. Nice.
So
All right. Okay. So do you have anything? Are you able to share the screen?
yes, let's see. So there's a green button, share screen. It says host disabled, participant screen sharing.
Okay, hold on. No, I should be because I was just looking at the try now.
Okay, here we go. Okay, I think I can share this one. How does that look? You able to see that?
It's starting up. Yeah, I see it now. Okay.
So this is what a Satori neuron looks like once you have it up and running. You can see like here's my holdings. I've got 30 Satori in my wallet and my vault. So this is kind of important. Um, Well, I'll go over that later. So let me give you a brief overview. Here's kind of a graph of some data that kind of is dependent on whatever you're looking at down here, but this is what matters. So
Mm-hmm.
this list is all of the data streams that my Satori neuron is predicting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's predicting Coinbase, IDEX rate in USD, for instance. And
Okay.
it's predicting the Cape Town temperature every hour. So it's got a lot. It's predicting a lot. And look, it's made some predictions very recently, and they show up here.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And are these your personal predictions? Like are these the personal okay.
yeah, these are the predictions that are being generated by my AI running on my machine.
Okay.
And so you can see the latest value for this one was 14.9. And I'm predicting that it looks like probably in the next 10 minutes, I should put cadence on here so we can see. It's going to be 14.6 or 6.5 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see the prediction that it's made. I can see the latest value that it came in at, and all that kind of stuff. Now, down here, I don't have any set up, but this could be a list of Oracle data streams. I should probably name that Oracle. But yeah, these are your data streams that you are producing that are not predictions, they're raw data. And so you can set them up by filling out this kind of uh, uh, form.
Form.
Sorry,
Yeah,
form
form.
right here.
Mm-hmm.
you'd put in like a name, a target. I won't show you how to do it, but it's basically just the URL and maybe how often you want it to hit that URL and relay that data. And I have like a whole tutorial about how to set these up. So you'd come down here, you'd fill it out, hit save, and then it would show up here as an Oracle data stream. So every every Satori neuron's doing predictions, maybe relaying data streams if you set those up, and it's got a wallet. So let's maybe check that out.
Are they able to are they able to do other actions like make purchase on your behalf? Like, can you set up these can you, like, let's say I want to buy a sneaker or something. Can I set it up to buy a sneaker on from this website?
Not yet. And I don't
Okay.
know, maybe not ever, but there probably will be tools that that connect into the Satori network
Mm-hmm.
and say when the predictions become like this, you can set up a little rule, but that's not built into the neuron itself.
Okay.
No.
So it's not allowed to do any actions. It is only able to predict.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Base
this just
and
predicts basically.
and also I think this is a question I should have asked earlier. With the predictions, it are they only able to do predictions on the information that they are observing at the moment, moving forward, or are they able to look back?
Oh, good question. So they keep a history of everything so that they can rebuild a model.
Okay.
So they do keep a history and they
But
say, if this new model would have predicted the past better than the model I've been using, then throw out the model I've been using and use this one instead. This is better. So that's how it knows if it's made a better model.
okay. But so how is it able to collect that information from the past if it wasn't assigned to that website initially?
So as neurons are, being oracles over time, they're
Hmm.
they're producing this data and they're broadcasting it out. All the oracles that are listening to it are remembering the past. So they're gathering the data and they're always remembering it. And then they share that with each other.
But
So that's
how are they remembering it? Are they going into the archives? Like, that's what I'm trying to, like, how do they gather this information? Or is that proprietary knowledge? Like, I don't want to be infringing on anything, you know?
oh yeah, look at this. Sorry, I have some working code that I'm developing, but so but to answer your question, for instance, if we got some data and the
Hmm.
latest data that we heard about, because we're listening, our neuron is subscribing to this stream. The
Hmm.
latest data we heard about was maybe this value or whatever. As
Hmm.
soon as the neuron hears that, it takes that value and it puts it in its memory. So it puts it on disk. It remembers it in that way.
Hmm.
And so it has this whole history local to the machine
Hmm.
of the history of this data stream. And when somebody else wants to subscribe to this data stream too, they send out a little message saying, "Hey, I want to subscribe to that one as well. Anybody who subscribes to that, why don't you share your history with me?" And so then it will broadcast the history directly to those other neurons. And so that's how we kind of remember the history of these data streams.
In history, and in what sense? Like, are you giving them just access to your computer? Like, I think that's really the crux of my question. Like, where is this
Ah.
history?
Well, the history is saved on your machine,
Hmm.
but when they ask for it, you don't just open the doors to let them in and see it. You actually take it and broadcast it to them. You push it to them. So that's how it remains secure. So yeah.
So you have to
And
go.
then
So you have to go into the back, uh, because I don't know that the exact terminology, but basically the back rooms of your computer and grab your files and physically drag them into Satori.
Not exactly. You
Okay.
might do that when you're setting up a data stream. If you have
Okay.
some history, you can kind of set up, you can kind of say, okay, I want you to grab this history going forward, but I'm going to supply you with the last 20 years, and that's attached to this data stream. You could do that. So that's part of setting up
But
an
where
oracle.
okay. Okay.
But as far as like remembering the data going forward, that's all automatic. So your
Yeah.
neuron just does
Yeah, I
that.
understand that. I understand that
Yeah.
part. I guess it's just the history part that always like gets me confused because like where are they like is this just like your local disk like where are they gathering this information like
Right.
are they going off of like your website searches or like because like if it was like because it's weird to explain because I don't know the exact terminology but it's like I thought they would like AI works as it just go taps into like the internet archives and just like pulls from that.
And goes and gets it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there is a URL that has the history, um, it can be not too hard to go get it, but usually you got to grab it yourself. And so that's really the hard work of being an oracle is
Hmm.
getting a good history, good data, curating the data, making sure it's good, and then having your node up and running all the time so it can broadcast out the new data. So
All right.
yeah, that's kind of part of setting it up. In fact, you can see like if I set one up here, I put in the name and the target and the cadence and the URL at least. I should probably fill everything out. But then it'll show up here and there's a button under history actions where you can be like add history. And so
Okay.
that's where you would add the history if you have it in a file on your hard drive. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good
The,
question.
all right. This is it's so confusing, but
I
I
know.
kind yeah I
Sorry.
kind of but I think I'm getting it a little because it's like with the URL is it like does Facebook have let's say if I'm doing like a hey check how many Facebook posts associated with let's just say cheesecake.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, right? And once we do all the information that like plug in all our information here, uh, does then Facebook have to allow Satori to do their research?
Um, I'm sure their legal teams would want to be able to say yes, but
Mm,
typically how it works is if a website is, as long as you're not over utilizing a website, typically you can just go grab it for whatever purpose you want. Like it's open data. You can go to the URL and just get the data. If you're hitting it like multiple times a second, then that's when websites tend to notice and block you and be like, hey, what are you doing? You know, you're abusing our servers. We
mhm.
can't give you all this traffic for free, you know, like so I'm sure, yeah, you know, the question around who owns data, it's still an open question
Mhm.
and everybody's arguing about it. And
Because
so,
they sell the
yeah.
data themselves, but I guess the workaround is you guys are able to go in and just take the data too. So,
Yeah, so if you're, I mean, and this system, Satori, is made for kind of a longer cadence, 10 minutes, an hour, a day, kind of in that range. And so if you're hitting a URL every 10 minutes, even, they don't care. I mean, generally, they just don't care. They're like, yeah, you can come get the Yahoo Finance data for Bitcoin every 10 minutes if you want. So so mostly they don't care. And if there's any system that does care, well, you know, they can reach out or something. Yeah.
okay, now, okay, so so show me some more stuff.
So this is the dashboard, and generally, unless you're going to be an Oracle, you really don't have to worry about it. Sorry, I I have some working, I have some code that's kind of in, you know,
Mhm.
this isn't the production code. This is my development portion. So some of this kind of looks wonky, but so if we go into our wallet, you can see that I've got 500 Satori in this wallet. And here's the address, and I can send. So this is a fully, I mean, it doesn't have every feature, but it's basically a fully functional wallet. Now, the interesting thing about this is if I had built this on Ethereum or Bitcoin or any platform, you have to use the platform currency in order to make a transaction.
Mhm.
So that's why I have this 0 Raven coin listed here. It shows me how much Raven coin I have in this wallet as well as the actual Satori asset. I made it so that you don't actually have to have any Raven coin or Evermore or whatever foundational token we're using. You don't have to have that in your wallet to make a transaction for us. You can just transact directly in Satori. You can just put in an address. I want to send, 1 Satori, and you can just send it. And the reason is, I didn't want that barrier to entry
Mhm.
to be there. I didn't want any friction that you have to now go get Raven coin in order to spend your Satori or move it or send it to somebody. So,
Which kind? Well, so I guess this brings me to another question. 'Cause, since there is no Raven coin associated with it, earlier you said it technically has no worth at the moment. So I guess the bigger question is when will not necessarily when will Satori be worth something? Like what when how do you guys how will you obtain worth? I guess is the
how do
better
you
question.
obtain a value?
Yeah, value, yes.
So, value comes from human attention.
Mhm.
So if humans think it's a cool project, they're going to want some Satori and they're going to either mine it or buy it. And so it's the human attention that gives things value. And so they just have to learn about it. And the only way to do that is to actually have this system up and running and provide value to people so that they appreciate it. So over here, I have the Satori website.
Mhm.
And you can go to the website and you can put in something right now, and you can see a prediction that some Satori node out there has created. And there's, I mean, I don't know, there's like 5 or 10 nodes running right now. We're in beta.
Wait, so right now this is like a mock-up of you purchasing something or no?
So right now, this is an actual prediction that a node has made about what the price of Bitcoin will be in the next 10 minutes.
Okay.
And so um, the prediction of the future is the value that this system provides. So if people say, "Oh yeah, I would like to know what the price of Bitcoin will be in 10 minutes," that's a valuable thing to me, then it will get attention and it will get value because people will appreciate what this is creating.
Mhm.
So that's where the value actually comes from. It's from the production of these predictions, and it'll just get better over time with scale.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, good question though.
All right. And so I don't know if this is a personal question, but has like how much money have people put into it?
Nobody's really bought it mainly because it's not really for sale. Like well, for 2 reasons. First of all, this Raven coin asset,
Mhm.
the Satori asset on the Raven coin blockchain is what we're using for our test token. So
Okay.
this is all test token. It will probably never have a value because Eventually, we're going to launch and we're going to actually have a different token. It'll still say Satori, but it'll be on a different platform. And that will be our main token for, in perpetuity.
Okay.
So that's one reason we haven't sold any Satori is because this is test token. And the other reason is I didn't want to have to, as soon as I start selling Satori or, getting investment in that way, um, then all kinds of, you
Legal
know,
situation come up.
legal
Oh,
stuff comes up and
okay.
whatever. So,
All right, makes sense. Is it
so I'm just going to wait for the network to be up and running. Miners generate the Satori token and then they sell it into the ecosystem. It gains a price in that way.
okay? That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So, anything else you want to share with the people before we wrap everything up?
Oh, I don't know if they really want to, if they really care about, well, maybe the vote's important. Like for instance, you can see here right in the neuron itself, you've got the predictors. They
Mm-hmm.
get 42% of the value that gets generated. So every day, a certain amount of tokens get generated, and then they get distributed to predictors, oracles, creators, managers. And this is determined by vote. You can go in here and you can say, well, I think the predictors should get 50% and they should get 20 and they should get 20 and they should get 10. So you can come in here and vote on on this distribution. You can also vote on which data streams are valuable, which, we probably don't want to predict everything. We probably want to predict the stuff that humans actually care about. So we use the community to decide what matters.
Mm-hmm.
So you can come in here and you can click on something and say, this is a data stream that matters. Fred, XV, this is kind of financial data, I think. And so I really care about that. I think we should be predicting that. So I can click on it and choose it. Um, so anyway, so then I can put my vote towards this as well. And it costs me nothing to vote.
And
So
do your nodes then assist his research in any way?
they don't directly start predicting that if I vote on it.
Okay.
They just say that, anybody who is predicting this now can,
Is doing something valuable.
yeah, is eligible for reward. Yeah,
Okay. All
totally.
right. All right. Nice. Okay.
So that's the whole vision. I hope that someday this will be something that everybody can look at and know what the future is going to be. And as soon as we get there, then we can act as one, human body. We can make decisions that we're all good with, because we know the outcomes of bad decisions. And so, yeah, that's what I'm working towards.
Okay. Nice. Interesting. All right. So, okay. So, a quick question that I had. Well, I have two, but the first one is in relation to this. Um, so right now that was can you go back real quick?
Oh, sure. Yeah, sorry.
So this is the total Satori that's out there in the world right now. That is that 2,488 Satori out there.
No, that's how much I have in my wallet and my vault.
Okay.
So if I open up my vault, it is an encrypted wallet. It looks just like the wallet, but it's encrypted.
Okay.
And so that's why I have the value mostly stored in the vault, because in case somebody gets access to this computer, they won't be able to decrypt the vault, and I'll still be able to keep this amount.
Okay. So this is the total Satori out there.
No, actually, we can look at the total Satori. Let's do it. Let's
Okay.
go to
No,
RVNT.
yeah, because basically my question was, let's say the total Satori, you're gonna pull up the actual amount there.
Yeah, I'm just gonna bring it up because it's on a public blockchain. Anybody can see it. Actually, I think this is the easier way to find it. Let's go over here. So here we go. This holds the total Satori that hasn't been distributed yet, which is there we go. Show assets. 4,000.
Okay.
44,000. So there's 44,000 Satori at this, and we have been you can see like here's our daily distribution happens
Hmm.
every day at 5 p.m. And you can see um like for instance this one we sent out 191 Satori to this address because they were doing some valuable work for the network.
Okay.
So yeah, it's all auditable. It's all on the public blockchain. Um, the
But
distribution amount is kind of set, but again, the community is in charge of this by vote.
mhm.
Um, so the idea is in the first 2 years, you mint 1 million tokens. And the next 4 years, about you've minted 2 million. And then eventually you get up to make, maybe around 4 million after, I don't know, 18 years or something. So that's our distribution rate.
Mm. Okay. So, all right. So, but this none of this has a monetary value at the moment, even though it's powered by a Raven.
That's
Okay.
right. That's
All right.
right.
So the minute, let's say you keep this current system, right? At the 4,000 X amount of sorry, yeah, scroll up so I can see how much it was again. Yeah, so the 4,000 no, so the 44,509 Satori that's out there, right? Let's say you open it up with the same system as it stands right now, and the first person puts in $1,000. That $1,000 is then broken down into smaller amounts, obviously, but then your product has a monetary value, right?
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
this so then let's say like somebody owns one Satori, then that Satori it becomes it is worth 0.0000015 or whatever because that amount was a minuscule amount compared to the $1,000 that was put into it, right?
Right. Right.
Okay.
And really it goes off of whatever that $1,000 paid for. So
Okay.
maybe somebody put in $1,000 because they wanted to buy 1,000 Satoris.
Mhm.
Well, then it would have a price of $1 per Satori.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, at the beginning, the price will be up and down. It'll be kind of radical, but the more disseminated it gets, the more of
Hmm.
an even price it'll get.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll start following like the normal patterns of what. Okay. All right. Okay. So I always ask the guests just cause if you've ever had any spiritual encounters or UFO encounters or and just anything you couldn't explain.
Oh, yeah, I have. Let me just shut this down and can I get back to
Yeah, you just have to stop sharing.
there it is, right there.
Okay.
Cool.
All
Nice.
right.
So I have had paranormal experiences. I've had two types.
Mm-hmm.
So I have had dreams where I saw the future several times in my life. And this is like a known phenomenon, like this happens to people.
Mm-hmm.
I've told people and they're like, "Oh yeah, I get dreams like that sometimes." So my dreams will be
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna ask, do you mind sharing the predictions?
sure, like it's weird because they're so mundane. Like it's like a power I don't know how to control. And so it just randomly occurs. And so it'll be like a conversation, and it's usually like 5 to 10 seconds.
Okay.
I'm dreaming, I'm incoherent, right? So, but I'll see like a snippet of my literal future, like viewing through my eyes, for like 5 seconds.
Hmm.
And then a few days or weeks later, it'll happen. And I'll be like, I know what you're about to say. There it is. And
Hmm.
so
So it's more so a more profound deja vu.
yeah, yeah, it's like a profound, profound deja vu. And I've
Okay.
had some of them are like, oh, I barely remember that. And others are like, I can remember this in explicit detail. And one of them was quite long. It was like 20 seconds long. And I was in a conversation with somebody, and I said something that I thought was not offensive, but it offended them. And
Hmm.
that was the dream. And they got really
Oh wow.
upset. And I didn't know why. And then I found myself in that exact conversation, in that exact room with that exact person. And I remembered the dream, and I remembered what I was about to say. And I did not say that thing, and they did not get offended. And so, yeah, you can alter it.
Hmm.
So I've had that paranormal experience at least once a year ever since I was a teenager. So
Mm.
it's crazy. Yeah.
Mm. It's interesting. You could alter it. I never thought of it
Yeah.
that way.
You can alter it. And I think that is so I think what you're actually viewing if you view the future is you're viewing a most likely future
Hmm.
because lots of futures could happen. And so what I think is you're viewing the most likely future. And as I've studied paranormal, like what science knows about paranormal activity, they've done studies on this. They've taken people and they've devised experiments, and they've tried to figure out what is a premonition, how does it work? And they actually did a study on this exact topic. When people see the future or have premonitions, what are they actually seeing? And the studies also bore out the idea that they are seeing the most likely future. They're not
Okay.
seeing a future that is guaranteed to happen. They're just seeing something that's extremely likely.
No, yeah, definitely. Okay. And what was the other type of paranormal situation you've been through?
So I had a very bizarre paranormal experience that I saw a ghost,
Hmm.
essentially. Um, and I don't know, you see ghost videos and it's like a door shutting. It wasn't anything like that. I saw a person, I saw them.
You saw them
So
materialize in front of you.
I did not see them materialize. I saw them, but okay, so I'll tell you the story. So this is kind of a sad story because I knew this person.
Oh
I didn't
shoot.
know them well. I had only met them like a couple times, but they were a coworker. So I start working at this company, and they're a coworker, and they're pretty cool. I like them. And they knew my coworkers better because they had been working there longer, and they were all friends and all that. So I didn't tell these people this story because I felt like it would um, not be respectful to his memory. Because at some point, he then eventually killed himself.
Hmm.
So I wasn't able to tell this story to the people around me at the time. But I was there early one day, working at like 6 a.m. And I'm sitting there, and the room I'm in has a door, and the door is open.
Hmm.
And so I can see kind of down the hall a little bit. And so if somebody passes, I can watch them, walk past the door and stuff. And so I saw him. His name was Andy. I saw him walk past the door. I saw him like he walked down the hall. He walked
Clear as
past it.
day.
What's that?
Clear as day. You saw him like it
Clear
was
as day. Yeah, I was
visibly
like,
Andy.
okay, Andy's here early today. It was like that. But weird thing was he wasn't wearing work attire.
Mm.
He was like wearing a white shirt, like an undershirt or something. Like I was like, oh, this is weird. So what I figured was a server must have gone down, some major problem occurred. He had to run into the office, get this thing working. So that's what I thought.
So, like a tank top, or was it like a thin white t-shirt or some shit?
It had sleeves, so it was like a t-shirt,
Okay.
but
Did did
I
you
don't
see
know.
the pants or anything? Like, was he fully dressed in white, or you couldn't really tell?
So this door was only a half door. It
Mm,
had like it was like cut in half, and the bottom half was closed. And so I
okay.
thought I saw shorts, could have been boxers, like I don't know, but
Oh
um,
wow.
I wasn't able to really see the bottom completely,
Hmm.
right? So, but I thought it was shorts of some kind. And so, but the weird thing is, he's frantic. He's walking down the hall, he's frantic, and so that led into my theory. Well, he's dressed weird. He's running, or not quite running, but he's frantically going down the hall. And so something must be broken. I don't know what it is.
This is all
And
a quick thought in your head.
that's what went through my head. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll ask him about that later. That's
And
interesting.
at this point, you had no knowledge that he had passed away.
No knowledge. And so the day goes on and I don't see him the rest of the day. He's in the next room over. Um, but so I go past his desk, he's not there. I don't see him. Nobody's I asked people like, you see Andy today? Nothing. And so um I was like, okay, well, whatever. I don't know. Maybe he came in, did this
That
thing, went straight back home to get
so you never
dressed, probably.
you never
So
mentioned it to anybody that you saw him there.
yeah, so I think I asked somebody that, during the day that day, but that was it, right?
Hmm.
And so then the next day occurs, and we get news that, so I don't know what day this was. Maybe it was a Monday. Let's pretend it was a Monday. And then so Tuesday happens as well. And at the end of the day on Tuesday, the news comes out to our group that Andy passed away. And he passed away on Monday morning at like 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 2 a.m. I don't remember exactly, but it was way before 6.
Hmm.
And so, um, yeah. So at first I didn't believe it. I was like, no, he didn't, because I saw him.
Yo,
So
that is
at first I
crazy,
was like,
bro.
well, it must have happened. You must mean Tuesday morning,
Hmm.
And but it's not like I argued a lot, because this was my group of people's friends. They were very good friends,
Yeah.
and so it's not like I was gonna get all up in it. So but I remembered it, and I was like, this is very bizarre. I saw a ghost. Now here's how I interpret it now.
Hmm.
Andy made a mistake. That's what I think. And he found out that he had made a mistake, and that his life was over. But he was in denial. And so whatever he was at that point, an apparition, an idea, I don't know, um, was trying to get to work to see if, like I can get back to my job, like he wants to go into his normal routine. He wants his life back. That's what I think I saw.
Oh man.
So, because he was frantic and it seemed like he was afraid. So that's how I interpret it now. Um, but
Mm.
that's the story of when I saw a ghost. Yeah.
And his appearance looked like he looked the prior, the week before. Like nothing really had changed as far as his appearance. Like
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. His appearance was the same. Um, yeah.
And it wasn't no cliche, like he wasn't translucent or like see through.
Right. So he looked like a human body. I thought he was totally, yeah,
Mm.
totally. Absolutely.
And he said nothing. He just looked at work like,
He didn't even look at me. So he was just looking ahead. He was just trying to get to his desk, I think, you know.
That's deep, bro.
It's wild.
That's deep as shit. God
Yeah.
damn, that should give me the chills. Oh
Yeah. I've
man.
never had an experience like that before or since. Um, I had a grandmother who kind of had several of these kinds of experiences that she wrote down.
I run in the
Um,
blood.
but yeah, I mean, but not me, except for the dream stuff. I mean, I've always thought that was interesting, but
Hmm.
that's it.
Interesting. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, because I think if there are ghosts, if ghosts are real, like you have to describe or define what they are. And at some point, everything's an idea, everything's in conscious experience. So I kind of feel like um, ghosts are the same, they're just not as well formed,
hmm.
you know, because everything we experience is a model inside our head. We don't actually experience the real world. The light gets translated into electrical signals. We make a model. It's an idea. Everything that, is real to us is really just an idea. So, um, this life after death kind of question, this phenomenon, um, I don't know. I don't know, man.
No, that's interesting, bro.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I guess we could dive deeper into this conversation next time we have you on. But
sure.
so yeah, so once again, let the people know where they can find you and plug everything you want to plug.
Okay. Yeah, so Satori, that's just satorinet.io. There's links on there to our Discord server, Twitter, social media for Satori itself. I'm on Twitter as I think I'm at Jordan Miller 333. So I think that's me. I don't
Okay.
typically use it. I probably should use it more,
Mhm.
but that's it. Yeah. I just want people to know about Satori, basically, is what I'm trying to do here.
No, yeah, I get it. No, yeah, I know. Okay, definitely gonna have all those links in the description. Make sure you go check out Jordan and check out Satori, man. Go if you believe in it, just sign up, man. And once everything gets up and running, you're just gonna be so so as far as the people that already are part of the system, once you guys launch everything, are they gonna be automatically integrated or is it gonna be like a new
It'll be
startup system?
automatic.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be a switch over that I think will be completely transparent to people who have downloaded it. I mean, the system will probably update the software by itself, or maybe upon a restart or something. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty much
Well,
transparent.
will you be able to keep your amount?
Yes, so you'll be able to keep your amount of beta tokens, and they will not be transferable to real tokens. So you'll basically start over earning the mainnet tokens
Hmm.
um, at that time, at that launch.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think I cut out here. Well, okay, man, it's been a great episode, guys. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And just like that, it's been a great episode.
Thanks for having me
Peace.
on.